So we are going to dig right into women's engagement and giving strategies. And as we go through this presentation, you'll definitely see why this is a relevant and critical topic. So now I will turn it over to Shauna, who will start in a jiffy.
Oh my goodness, the pressure there. I don't think I've performed there in a jiffy, but here I am, and it's wonderful to see all of you. And this is such a fun topic. It's such an interesting topic. What women want, it's one of the age-old questions. So we're going to get into it today in terms of how it is relevant to what we do every day. So Trish, next slide, please. All right, so it is more rewarding to watch money change the world than to watch it accumulate. I want for us to just stop and ponder this for a moment and draw your attention to what it is that you're thinking upon reading that quote. You might be thinking about Gloria herself and what images come to your mind about her and her legacy. You might be thinking about the age-old saying of, you can't take it with you when you die. And I would encourage you to think of this in a way of responsibility, a responsibility that we all carry as fundraisers, as people who inspire philanthropy, as people who spend our days finding ways to unlock what it is that makes people become generous. Hopefully to our organizations, but in all honesty, we're looking for what makes people tick, what makes them motivated, what makes them give. And today we're looking at women in particular. Next slide, please, Trish. Now, this leads me to a brief but necessary disclaimer. We're all friends here, and I know this goes without saying, but quite a bit of this is sexist. And could be misconstrued as negative, but I assure you my intentions are pure. This is based on my experiences, on our experiences, and there are certainly always exceptions to the rule. And this is meant to be helpful, not derogatory. As a woman, I claim mostly everything that I'm going to say, depending on my mood. And I want to just put out there that I do think that all people are quite fascinating, quite lovely, and they deserve all of our attention. And that being said, let's talk about sex. The female kind, of course. So next slide, please. Why? Why women specifically? So according to the Aspen Institute, an institute who surely knows their stuff, women just give more, plain and simple. Just about every which way you slice it. I have plenty of theories on this personally. I plan to share quite a bit with you, but I want to focus in on this second statistic that we've highlighted for you here, which is that women have a huge impact on household giving. For every $10,000, their salary increases, their giving increases by 5%, as compared to just 3% for men. Now, again, I encourage you to pause and to reflect on what that means as a fundraiser, as someone who is interested in giving trends, as someone who benefits from understanding motivations in giving. I would challenge you a bit further as someone who more than likely is stretched quite thinly, who could use ways to make their jobs a bit easier. When I read this statistic, I have an image of the donor pyramid that comes to my mind. Can you all see it? Are you all visualizing it? Are you picturing it? At the bottom, we have our entry-level givers, right? Our annual givers, they're kind of dipping their toe into giving. They're trying us out. They're interested, but they're just baby givers. They may not be earning a ton yet. They give 100 a year, maybe 250, maybe even 1,000. Our goal, of course, is to move them up in that pyramid. We're always trying to move our donors up in that pyramid by being really good at all the things, all the hats. We identify, we cultivate, we ask, we secure, we steward, we steward, we steward, we steward. We begin again. We ask for more. If we've done our jobs well, over time, we're able to move them onward and upward in that pyramid, right? What this statistic tells me is that women, by their nature, they move themselves up the pyramid for us, right? If we hook them and then we keep them engaged, we keep them involved, we thank them, we let them volunteer with us. As they make more, they give more. And that is something I would say we can use to our advantage. Out with that scary thought process. And I would also add painful thought process of, but they've always given at this level. That's where they're more comfortable. No, as they make more, they give more. They're giving it somewhere. It might as well be to us. Women are wonderful giving creatures, if I do say so myself. So next slide, please, Trish. We know that one of the oldest questions ever, a question that we ourselves cannot oftentimes answer, is what women want. Let's talk about what they do not want, which honestly seems to be a mystery as well at times. Women do not want to be a silent seat at the table. And I found this to be a delightful secret to success in terms of transformational gifts, bringing the spouse to the table. Generally, the wife doesn't have to be the wife, but better yet, have her speak. What is she interested in? What are her concerns with your organization or with the care being provided or with how her money is going to be used? What are her experiences? Did she have a baby there? Did a member of her family be cared for there? What does she think about making a gift of this size? Oftentimes, I've found the husband, most often the husband, to be relieved at the idea of inviting her in the first place. A nice, pleasant surprise, and it makes our jobs easier. For example, hey, Bill, we're going to sit down with you. We're going to have this conversation about this pretty transformational gift that we are hoping that you are going to consider making. We would love to also have Barbara at the table. We would love to be able to sit down with both of you. We know that you make decisions of this magnitude as a couple, and we think it's important to be able to have her involved. Oh yeah, that'd be great. She'd love that. Perfect, right? I would challenge you to not just apply this to ask, but to involvements. Countless tables we have all sat around developing prospect lists, and it's bank presidents and lawyers and real estate agents and usually gentlemen who by all respect deserve their names to be said, and a few women here or there. I do not want to say in any way, shape, or form that we do not have women rock stars who are not on these lists. I'm not claiming that we live in the olden days, but I would encourage you as fundraisers to pause at the lull in those prospect lists, or whenever you're feeling like your well is a little dry. I would encourage you to take a look at those prospect lists and say, what about the spouses of any of these? Especially physicians or leaders. Are their wives or are their husbands connected to us in any way? Would they want to be? Could they be? You can generate so much more in terms of prospects if you look at the other half of the relationship. What women do not want is to be, even worse, an afterthought, not even at the table. Because this happens, they're not included. They're the afterthought. And do you know what that makes them automatically? The out. We've all heard it. We all fear it. The donor, we sit down, we have this wonderful presentation that we've done with them. That sounds great. I think you've done a great job. I'm 100% in. I'd love to give you that $1 million you just asked for, but I need to take it home and talk to my wife. Ouch. We've more than likely lost them, right? Because guaranteed that their pitch to their spouse isn't going to be as well delivered and as lovely as ours was. They're not going to have the answers that that upset spouse is going to have. In fact, I've been that upset spouse. They asked you for what? Why? Why you and not me? Why wasn't I involved? Who was there? Why on earth did they think you would give that type of money and not talk to me about it? Yes, I understand that I might be a wee bit sensitive to that, but I'm also just bringing to light that if there are ways for what we do to be easier, we should be doing them. And most of the time, having the spouse hear the same thing is helpful. I reflect here on the wise words of Jim Lyons, who has a wonderful way of talking through how every couple has a limit. And that limit is the amount that each partner is allowed to spend without consulting with the other party. And that if you go out of that limit, you put your marital bliss, your home harmony at risk. We don't want to do that as fundraisers. We want to include them in the conversation. And I would also challenge you that I bet a lot of you are listening to this and you are thinking of that one couple that you need to make a huge ask of. And one of them is simply delightful and they're wonderful and you're pretty sure that they would give you everything that they have. And then the other one, maybe not quite so delightful, maybe a Debbie Downer, maybe a negative Nelly. And the idea of inviting them along you think is counterproductive. But I would challenge that and say that you are the best person to be able to turn that around. You are the best person to be able to provide the answers and to be able to help them feel like they're a seat at the table. Again, have it assume that their motivations match their husbands or their spouses. Rarely found that spouses' motivations match each other. Let me be clear, I do not mean that they do not give financially to the same project. I think that marital giving is usually mutually decided upon, but I think they're motivated differently. Women are motivated by experiences, by emotions. I gave birth here. My mother was cared for here. My friend passed away here. This nurse did this for us. As compared to men are generally more transactional, tit for tat. What does this mean for me? What does it specifically mean for the organization? Where does my dollar go? How much of my dollar goes towards it? Women, how do people relate to this? How am I helping them directly? Are we really making things better for them? You need to be able to address both of those in your pitch. Also, women are just not as motivated by naming opportunities for their own names, something reflecting for them personally. That leads us into that they're not interested in their names being front and center. Given the choice, women want to honor others. They want to say thank you, or they want to grieve, or they want to express an emotion. On a personal note, on a side note, I wonder, and I bet that there is data to support this or disprove it, that if there's anything connecting this to the fact that women generally, again, this is a generally that goes back to that disclaimer, women oftentimes are changing their names halfway through their life, right? Not always, but sometimes. And I wonder if that is where men are so much more insistent on the legacy of the name carrying on in terms of a naming opportunity, whereas women are more connected to the emotions. Just a personal side note there. All right, Trish, let's head to that next slide, please. And let's talk about what they do want. We have a case study on this later, but engage women. See if you can get them involved in committees as volunteers. Tell them direct impact stories. Use their friends, use their associations. Women want to understand how. To have more time and information to be informed of the impact they can make. Women generally are not making decisions on the fly. I realize that this can slow down your ask for bringing them to the table, but I would encourage you that it can also grow your gift. High impact is more meaningful to them than high visibility. How are we helping? Who are we helping? Why do they need my money? As compared to where is my name going? When is it going up? Who will know? They like to give over time. And I believe that this circles back to the impact piece. They want to see that that money is being used as they're giving it. It's also maybe a trust issue. We want to see that our money is being used properly as we're giving it. And they want to get their hands dirty, to be down in the thick of the mission. Oftentimes with a group, if they're not already involved, once they've given that gift, that is a perfect time to draw them in. Okay, next slide, please. Jim spoke about Mackenzie Scott a little while ago, and she is one of the profiles that we want to take a look at today in terms of just, oh my Lanta, right? What a life to lead currently. Am I right? If you don't know about her, I encourage you to read about her. She is a fundraiser's dream. We are talking about Mackenzie Scott, who is the prior Mackenzie Bezos, who is married to Jeff Bezos of Amazon. Just for any of you who maybe have been living under a rock or just don't know about who is transforming the landscape of philanthropy as we know it. Next slide, please, Trish. I did read that as of March that Mackenzie is valued at roughly 50 billion now, but what's 10 billion here or there? Am I right? Regardless, this woman has a boatload of money. And even better, she understands the power of good that she wields. Oftentimes people ask me, as I'm sure they do you, randomly as icebreakers at conferences or wherever it may be, what is your dream job? And after I say working for Pride Philanthropy, of course, I say to be a philanthropist, to be a Mackenzie Scott, and not just because $1 billion would be great to have, or 50 or 66 or whatever, but to be able to change the world, to change people's lives through the power of generosity, to do it just like she is. Surprise, here's the money you so desperately need. I envision it like, hey, hero's path. Here's your 10 million to build your palliative care, to bring support and love to families you need. Even all of you on this phone call, here's the money that you need to be able to provide the care, whatever your mission is. She just gifts it to people and changes their life overnight. I'm reflecting on the last statement of Mackenzie's profile here, and I want to address also the question that is burning in all of our minds. How do we, each of us as fundraisers, as people trying to make our worlds better, how do we get on Mackenzie Scott's radar, right? On her team's radar, a pipe dream. Apply what we've spoken about, engage women, keep them involved, use them as your volunteers, no matter their giving level. Thank them, steward them, take a look at your missions. Are they clear? If Mackenzie Scott cannot sleep at night because she's stressed about all the money that she needs to give away, and she stumbles upon your website, does she understand your need quickly enough to throw a couple cold million your way? Make your missions clear, and you treat every donor, male or woman, like they're the next Mackenzie Scott. And I would say it's the organizations that invited Mackenzie Scott to the lunch, to the dinner, to the ask. It's those organizations who have millions coming their way to fund their project because they heard her voice and valued her opinion, even though Jeff was the big dog, is the big dog, even when he was the one that everyone cared about. And don't get me wrong, he's got a whole bunch more billions than Mackenzie does. But you know what he's not interested in? Giving it away. Mackenzie is the key to that. Invite the spouse. Okay, the next slide, please, Trish. The Maverick Collective. Now, if you were to ask me what one of my greatest goals in life is, I would tell you my loftiest goal is to be a maverick. Not just because it's a super cool name. I'm going to explain that to you. I'm betting most of you have not heard of the Maverick Collective, but you should know about them because they are genius at what they do. Absolutely, positively genius. Also understand, in full disclosure, that the co-founders are a Princess and Melinda Gates. But nevertheless, this small but powerful group of women is changing the world. And I believe changing the landscape of philanthropy. I once spent an afternoon in snowy Colorado in a living room with Kate Roberts, who is the brains behind Maverick Collective. And she spoke to us as fundraisers, doing our best to change our corners of the world, but really in trying to unlock the power of philanthropy for a greater good, about their business model. And I'll never forget the time I spent with her that day and the way it changed how I approach my work from that day forward. At the time, to become a Maverick, you applied. You applied, and it was, and I assume it still is, a rigorous process to be approved to donate. And not just to donate big. I believe also at the time, the minimum donation was $3 million. You applied and you could be denied to give the Maverick Collective a $3 million donation. And that was just your foot in the door. And you don't just give, you pick an initiative. You are boots on the ground. You are part of the solution. If there's no solution, you build the solution. And these aren't vague solutions, they're bold solutions. We will end poverty in this specific country by this year. We will eliminate women's health concerns via inadequate access by this time. We will end this type of disease and this type of environmental issue by this time. We will end trafficking in this area. Big, scary, expensive ideas. These women, these millionaires, these billionaires, they travel to these impoverished, scary areas and they spend their money. And this is when my rhetoric of, would you consider giving X amount to support XYZ project changed to, we're inviting you to join us on a really incredible journey. You want to be a part of this. We're sitting down with you because we want for you to be a part of this, and we hope you'll join us. It switched everything I knew about the concept of begging for money, which we hear about so often still, to changing the thought process of that we are giving the donor a gift of connection to us, to our mission. We are giving them the benefit of finding where they want to give. Women give this way. They want to be involved. They want to be engaged. They want to give and give big to change the world. You know what else? I still want to be a Maverick. I want to apply to give away my hard-earned money to change the world. And when I get my raise next week, I'm going to do that. Totally joking. I see Jake panicking. It's okay. I'm just kidding. All this to say, we can improve very easily by taking a few quick steps. Trish, next slide, please. Take a look. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Take a look at your portfolios, and I challenge you to walk through them and ask yourself, do we have both the spouses listed? Are we heavy in one gender and not another? If we don't have the spouses listed, should we bring them to the table? Is that possibly a way to open a door that we haven't been able to open yet? Might they be approached to learn what they're interested in themselves? Do we owe it to them to hear their voices as well? Do we have opportunities to engage women? Women's giving groups could be more successful than ever. We're hearing, we're reading, and we're fearing the great she-gression. I think women are yearning for value, for ways to feel empowered and heard and to make a difference. We can give that to them. Does Zoom make it easier to engage them? Can we do meetings at times that aren't lunches? Can we think outside of the box? Can we find other organizations that are doing it and doing it well and apply what we need to where we're at? Start the discussion and open the dialogue. Oftentimes, I think that we only need to look as far as our leadership teams to get started here. Your presidents, your CEOs, your CFOs, your CMOs, your best physicians, your best instructors, your best volunteers. If they're males, and I do very much realize that some of them are not, but if they are their spouses involved? Do we have places to plug them in? They can be some of our biggest brightest advocates. Doesn't just have to be wives. It can be husbands as well. But look at the spouses. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions at this time, or pleasant comments that aren't upset with me generalizing all women in the same way, because that is not my intention whatsoever. But we would also like to hear if there's any experiences that anyone would like to share. No one? Anything?
Steph.
I'll just say that we've been switching a lot of our donors in our database from the traditional male female to female male. So our main point of contact is our wives, I guess, and that's been really good on our end. So we got rid of the Mr. and Mrs. salutation, and we just call people by their names, and that's helped too. So, a little trick we've done.
That's great, Steph. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, I for those of you who have seen it, there is a movie called What Women Want, and it is a great old movie. Old, I think I can say that now. I think it is like legit old, but there's a scene in that movie where Mel Gibson gets in touch with his feminine side and really tries to understand what women want. And I am pleased to exit this conversation now, and Jake is going to reenact that movie scene in song form.
April Fools.